Toontown 2.0. Such a widely discussed topic. In this video, I'll unfold to you every single detail of what happened involving the actual Toontown 2.0. I was wondering where to really start on this subject because there were plenty of resources out there to find and look at, whether it was portfolios of art directors, photos of models, drawn out plans. There were a bunch of things to see and ponder, but none of it really painted an exact clear picture of what it all was. So I'll now tell you exactly what went on with everything involving Toontown 2.0. Around 2011, Disney Interactive had been cutting costs, firing staff, and bringing in new management for a while. With internal staff getting promotions but seeing support for Toontown Online slowly but surely dying off, they came ultimately upon a decision amongst themselves to try and regain support and funding for Toontown. Creative director Felipe Laura, having recently been promoted to head of the team at the time, saw the potential for Toontown and a future for the game. He had been working on Toontown since the very start and strongly believed that it had a place in the gaming industry. He and a team of 4 other people consisting of Jay Friedman, Debbie Kim, Bridget McCahan, Richard Edwards, and James Schaff set out to create a prototype for a new Toontown game. To start, they wanted to create something that ultimately expanded on the original game, meaning they wanted a new updated art style, they wanted to improve the technology based upon the game, and ultimately expand upon the game in its entirety. After having constructed their idea of what they wanted Toontown 2.0 to become, they set out to try and make it a reality. They discussed game engines and platforms and decided that Unity was the best option at the time for a prototype that could really allow them to express their ideas that would provide expansion of the game from the original. The concept of Toontown 2.0 as a prototype was to achieve 2 things. 1. To prove that Toontown had room to expand and could grow, and 2. To impress and ultimately receive funding and a green light to become a reality. The main concept was that it was going to be identical to Toontown Online and playstyle. There were still going to be playgrounds, streets, Cog HQs, and more. It was still going to feature a turn-based combat system with all of the original gags returning, mini games for jelly beans, buying more gags with the jelly beans, and all of the core concepts of Toontown Online. So with that in mind, they set out to work on it. The team of 5 worked on the prototype as much as they could, and in 3 months' time, they had built a fully playable prototype of Toontown 2.0 featuring a new downtown city and highlighting new features that they had wanted to implement. The main feature they felt was needed to be included in Toontown 2.0 was interaction. They wanted to add much more interactivity to the game. They wanted to make slight changes in some of the basic parts of the game to add some sandplay-like things to do. They tried to feature objects such as a safe hanging from Goofy's gag shop that you could trigger to land on a dummy cog, or even interactive piano tiles that played tones when you stepped on them. In the prototype, you could control a dog and walk around the downtown setting of Toontown, interacting with several little environmental objects. It was all very simplistic, but it really helped showcase what they had in store for a second Toontown game. They also wanted to add interactive side story missions that you could activate by going to specific locations in the city. With this in mind, they had spent another 3 months creating 2 smaller prototypes of side mission games that your toon could be the star or hero of in Toontown 2.0. They wrote a storyboard of the mission called Escape from Planet Doodle, which theoretically was activated upon stepping up to a rocket that was placed in the downtown prototype. The storyboard says that your toon approaches the rocket when an arm with a big clamp comes out. It grabs your toon's head and cuts to a scene presenting your toon. Part 2 of the storyboard, in which I'm not sure many have fully seen, details the title card and shows you that it cuts to the interior of a ship that begins shaking once your toon lands inside. The cabin features a slew of interactive features such as a toaster or a slot machine amongst others. A game would begin once a launch button was pressed. Once you press the launch button, a cutscene would trigger where the window becomes filled with clouds, birds, airplanes, and more. The rocket launches off with text appearing shortly after reading, entering the Pinata Belt, in which a game would trigger that your toon would have to heroically win. If you win, your toon starts cheering and dancing in celebration, but as they're celebrating, a planet in the distance appears and you're heading towards it. Text flashes reading, "Attention, planet ahead," leading up to your inevitable crash landing on the planet. You get out of your now stranded spaceship on this foreign planet, and as your toon gets out, they see the one and only Doodles, and your toon runs up to frolic with them. As you're cuddling your doodles, you hear a boom to see that a giant Cog spaceship has crushed your old crashed rocket. A speaker on the Cog ship says, "Another planet species added to our collection. Prepare to be captured." Arms then shoot out of the spaceship with walls that includes you and the Doodles. This triggers a Doodle Rescue game. Once you've rescued the Doodles and saved the day once again, the spaceship doors open and a Big Cheese exits saying, "If I can't capture Doodles, then I'll capture you." This activates a third new mini-game called Cog Chase when your Toon runs inside the giant Cog spaceship. Once you win, your Toon arrives at the controls of the Cog ship, and the camera pans to reveal you and your Doodles safely loaded, ready to return to Toontown, effectively ending the complete side mission. In the second 3 months, the other prototypes that the team developed featured fully playable versions of both the Pinata Belt navigation game and the Doodle Rescue game. Having managed to finish these 3 simple prototypes, they were shown to those in-house at Disney Interactive and to the executives. It was received very well from those that viewed and played them, but there were still concerns because at the time Unity was still an untested platform, and those in charge of making the final decision were against the use of using a product built on an engine that was not created solely by them. Not only was technology an issue, but the new management team that had recently been appointed had their own new projects to work on, speculatively in my opinion, the at the time upcoming game Disney Infinity, and were just simply not motivated by the premise and idea of Toontown Online nor a sequel. However, I will note that this same management team that came in to revamp the Disney in-house game division were not very successful. In just about a year's time, they had essentially lost the whole division. Not only was Toontown Online included in this loss, but everyone who had worked on and had been working on it had lost their jobs with the exception of about 1 or 2 people. With the prototype in the end not receiving approval from the executives, operations on it were stopped. Production was ceased and the team went back to focusing solely on the management of Toontown Online. And sadly, this is where the story of Toontown 2.0 ended. It was merely a prototype showcasing features of what could have been for Toontown, but with the sinking division and new staff, it was ultimately scrapped and never saw the light of day. With the past being the past and new staff completely working for Disney, I'm not even sure in my opinion if there is hope for a new Toontown game, unless it can be solely kickstarted by another company, most notably in my mind Shell Games. If there's any hope for a reboot of the game, that's who I would look towards for the hope for it. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed learning all about the history of Toontown 2.0. In an upcoming video, I'll show off and play the prototypes and show the world for the very first time what was really going on in the prototypes. Thank you all for your support. I promise that there are plenty more Toontown mysteries for me to cover and discuss, and I'll be working on those as fast as I can. I have plenty more topics, I have plenty more rants, and other series that I'm going to be working on and getting out for you guys to enjoy. So thank you all for your continued support, and I hope to see you next time in my next video. Thank you. And here at the end of the video, I felt like I just wanted to add as much concept art for Toontown 2.0 as I could find. So if you're interested in seeing the many images I could find of it online, then just keep watching and I'll scroll through all of what I could find. Thank you.